Chamoy Thipyaso was a wealthy, powerful Thai lady who was born on November 27, 1940. She is a citizen of Thailand. She was an employee of the Petroleum Authority of Thailand, a government-owned oil company. She was charismatic and she had an uncanny vision for business. She was known for her charisma and ability to articulate a compelling vision for chit fund scheme. She presented herself as a visionary entrepreneur who wanted to revolutionize the financial industry by developing a scheme that would help people actualize their financial freedom. She set up a chit fund scheme called Chamoy Fund, which appeared like an oil share that would offer higher returns for those who invested money in it. She was extremely confident and persuasive, often convincing investors, despite lacking concrete vetting. The response was good as the fund had a large number of politically powerful investors from the military and even the royal household. She had an impressive network of influential contacts, including political figures, business leaders, and investors. This helped her gain credibility and attract more attention and funding for Chit Fund. Many people praised her and her company's mission. This positive publicity further fueled interest and investment. Many investors and supporters were eager to believe in the scheme's success due to the potential financial returns and the promise of revolutionizing the financial appetite of investors. Overall, a combination of her charisma, persuasive abilities, influential connections, hype, and investors' trust contributed to why people fell prey to her and invested in Chit Fund despite the significant risks and ultimately the downfall of the company. In the late 1960s, Chamoy started a chit fund called the Chamoy Fund, which was made to look like an oil share with high returns. She started a chit fund scheme and convinced people with mutual trust to join. A chit fund scheme is a type of savings and borrowing scheme practiced in India, as well as in some other countries. It's a traditional method of pooling financial resources among a group of individuals, typically friends, family, or members of a community. Each investor contributed a fixed amount of money regularly into this fund. Every month, one member of the group receives the total amount collected, which is determined through a bidding process. Investors can bid for the total amount, and the one who bids the highest discount wins. The discount is the difference between the total collected amount and the amount bid by the winner. This process continues each month until every member has received their turn to receive the lump sum. Chit funds are often used as a means of saving or obtaining credit, especially by individuals who may not have access to traditional banking services. However, they can also be prone to abuse and fraud if not properly regulated. In recent years, there have been instances of chit fund schemes being used illegally, leading to financial scams and losses for investors. Therefore, it's important for participants to be cautious and ensure that they are dealing with legitimate and regulated chit fund companies. Due to her connections with the Royal Thai Air Force and Petroleum Authority of Thailand, the fund was able to sustain itself for a remarkably long time. Her connections to the military were a huge factor in political and business power, and so its apparent military backing made the scheme seem legitimate. The scheme drew in 16,231 clients. She promised investors high returns with little or no risk to investors. The investment opportunity promised unusually high returns with little risk. They didn't think it could be potential Ponzi schemes or a fraudulent scheme. Well, greed made the investors fall for her. She began to operate by using funds from new investors to pay returns to earlier investors, rather than generating profits through legitimate business activities. What the investors didn't know was that Thipyaso's scheme relies on a constant influx of new investors to continue paying returns to earlier investors, and they typically collapse when there are not enough new investors to sustain the payments or when the scheme is uncovered by authorities. Thipyaso knew the scheme was inherently unsustainable and destined to fail, but for some reasons best known to her, she continued her deception, amassing wealth while defrauding her investors because as the scheme grew, it became increasingly difficult to recruit new investors at the same rate or in sufficient numbers to sustain the promised returns. Eventually, there were not enough new investors to support the payouts to existing investors. Because there were no real business investments, the Thipyaso scheme was not generating legitimate profits through investments or any business activities. Instead, she used funds from new investors to pay returns to earlier investors. Without real investments or revenue-generating activities, the scheme could not sustain itself in the long run. And so as the scheme expanded and more investors joined, the liabilities of the scheme grew exponentially. The amount owed to investors increased rapidly, while the pool of new investors to cover these liabilities was reduced. The wind has blown and everyone began to see the rump of the chicken. The scheme that typically promised high returns with little or no risk, which is not feasible and legitimate investment opportunities, began to crumble. These unrealistic promises eventually become untenable as the scheme struggles to generate enough funds to meet investor expectations. She knew her business product was unrealistic and unsustainable and only rely on deception to operate. Authorities began to investigate and uncover fraudulent activities. The scheme is exposed, leading to its collapse and the loss of investors' funds. Investors scampered to recover their funds while Thipyaso lost the trust of people, and her reputation ultimately led to her failure and downfall. Chit fund scheme collapsed. The fall tarnished her reputation in a disgusting manner. By this time, she had defrauded more than 16,000 Thais and is estimated to have been worth between $200 million and $301 million. Since the fund had a large number of politically powerful investors from the military and even the royal household, and as such there were calls for the government to bail out the banks and the chit funds due to the involvement of these high-profile individuals. After discussions with the king, the nature of which were not made public, the Chamoy fund was shut down and was not shut down mid-1980s, and Chamoy was arrested. She was held in secret by the Air Force for several days, and her trial was not held until after the losses for the military and royal personnel involved had been recovered. Thipyaso's trial was not held until after the losses for the military and royal personnel involved had been recovered. She was held in secret by the Air Force for several days. On July 27, 1989, Chamoy and 7 accomplices were convicted of corporate fraud. She was sentenced to a total of 141,078 years. Although she was sentenced to a total of 141,078 years in prison, Thai law at the time stated that the maximum sentence that could be served for fraud was 20 years. Her sentence was further reduced, twice, and she just served 8 years in prison. In the end, she walked out of jail in less than a decade. She was convicted in 1989 at the age of 49 and was released in 1993 at the age of 53. The love of money is a common phrase often cited from the Bible, specifically from the New Testament, 1 Timothy 6 verse 10, which states, "For the love of money is the root of all evil." This passage suggests that an excessive desire for wealth can lead to various immoral or unethical actions. While money itself is not inherently evil, the pursuit of it at the expense of ethical principles or the well-being of others can lead to negative consequences. The love of money can drive individuals to prioritize material wealth over other important aspects of life, such as relationships, integrity, or compassion. This concept is not limited to religious teachings and has been echoed in various cultural and philosophical contexts throughout history. It serves as a cautionary reminder about the potential dangers of greed and the importance of maintaining a balanced perspective on wealth and its role in our lives. Thank you for staying with us this far. If this is the sort of story you like, subscribe to my channel, click the notification button, and leave your comment. If you have any sentence you would like us to cover, please leave your suggestion in the comment section. Bye.